All right, Rick, I got Justin Jefferson, receiver, Louisiana State.
How about that? Well,
we were very fortunate that Justin Jefferson fell to us that night, and we were very excited about it. But it's history. It's over. It's done. Moved on in life.
All right, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings, freshly crowned as the highest paid receiver in NFL history. And who better to break it all down than the man who drafted him, Rick Spielman. So, Rick, take us through drafting Justin Jefferson and, of course, the famous video where you guys were pretty excited to get him at number 22 and maybe not really expecting him to be there.
Yeah, no, we did as much work as we could with the restrictions that we had. We did a lot of film work because if you remember, when he came out, he was the slot receiver, and Ja'Marr Chase was the guy that was kind of the go-to guy for Joe Burrow that year. I believe it was the year they won a national championship. We went back and watched all his previous tape, and saw that he does have ability to play outside. I give a lot of credit, though, to Gary Kubiak, who was the guy that was like, this guy is going to fit excellent in the scheme we're going to run. Coach Zimmer, the scouting staff, everybody, we were all on the same page that we really thought that he did reach his full potential in college because he wasn't actually the number one targeted receiver at LSU. I believe Chase was at the time. But when he did get his opportunities, especially in the red zone, he took advantage of every opportunity. And when he ran in the 4.4s when he came out, because there was some question about what his true speed was. And a lot of times when you watch receivers, some of these guys that move so smooth don't look like they're running fast, but they're actually running fast. Out of this year's class, I thought Marvin Harrison Jr., even though he didn't run, looked so smooth for a big guy that he probably runs faster than people anticipated. But Justin was able to run in the 4.4s, and that answered any question for us on that front. And, we were very fortunate that he was sitting there when our pick came up.
All right, pick is in. We're on the clock. Jalen Reagor, wide receiver, TCU to the Eagles.
Hey, Pat.
I'm on it.
Nice. Get Justin Jefferson on the clock right now.
I'm on it.
Wow.
I don't know what the best term is. It's like it's almost, we were smarter than everybody else. There was self-promotion, and I hate that. It was a great team effort by everybody in that room. And so many people put so many hours into that draft. I know I'm the general manager, and I know I have to make the final decisions, but I give a lot of credit to everybody else, and I'm just not a self-promoter. I hate self-promotion.
Yeah, the question about him, like the biggest question I think, was that thing you touched on, which was he was primarily the slot receiver, and a lot of people were like, well, can he actually play on the outside? But the answers were there earlier in his career. Like, he had played outside and then almost moved inside to accommodate Ja'Marr Chase. It's not like it was a total projection the way it is for some receivers coming into the NFL.
No, and we spent a lot of time on the previous year too, just seeing him, and he was, I don't think anyone, if you knew that Justin Jefferson was going to be Justin Jefferson, then we should have traded up and made him the top 5 pick in the draft, So, but just like any evaluation, you're trying to project where you're going to see this guy. But we had no doubt, and Gary Kubiak had no doubt coming into the building that he was going to be able to do multiple things and line up at multiple positions. The other thing that was very unique about Justin Jefferson was how intelligent he was and how quickly he picked up that ability to play multiple positions in the offense. And I remember him walking in the first day of rookie minicamp, and the first time that I seen him go up and catch the ball, and his ability to torque his body and pull down a one-hand catch in rookie minicamp, I looked at a couple of our guys and said, we may have something here that we thought that we didn't anticipate was going to be as good as he's going to be. And he was so humble. It's another thing that I don't know if people realize. And he works as hard as anyone I've ever been around. And I've been around, I think, some Hall of Famers. Barry Sanders, when I was in Detroit. I think Adrian Peterson had a Hall of Fame type career. And those guys that have that unique physical ability, but they do the extra because it's not good enough just to rely on what they have. They always try to strive to even get better and better. And I would put Justin Jefferson in that category. I know he wants to win a Super Bowl, but I know when he came in, one thing he talked about is I want to be known as one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver that played in the NFL, and I want to have that gold jacket. And that's a rookie coming in talking about those aspirations and those goals.
It was an interesting wide receiver class that year, Rick. What do you think the NFL missed? Because I don't know. I want to know where you had Justin Jefferson on your board, but I think the consensus had guys like Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, and then Henry Ruggs ends up becoming the first receiver off the board. But I think a lot of people had that as a top three, and then maybe the Jalen Reagors and Justin Jeffersons of the world maybe in a second tier. What do you think the NFL missed to that they didn't see Jefferson maybe in that top tier? And then where did you guys actually have him on the final board?
Yeah, we had him up there in the top tier. We had him a lot higher than where we were able to draft him. And I wouldn't forget about Ayuk either, because we really liked Ayuk when he came out of Arizona State. Now, it took him a little longer to come around, but the way he's playing right now, he's going to be paid up there with the top echelon of receivers in today's game. But I think, when you go back and look at that, CeeDee Lamb was very talented. He was, and he's proven where he's going to maybe pass Justin Jefferson now that Justin Jefferson set a new floor, but that new floor may only last till, CeeDee Lamb and or Jamar Chase get their deals. Jeudy was the excellent route runner. That was his deal at Alabama. And the other one was just a speed demon. And you knew that if it was the Raiders, they're going to take speed no matter what. At least that's the history that they have shown in the past. So unfortunate and, tragedy what happened with him in his career. But I think CeeDee Lamb has a Hall of Fame career type going. Jeudy, just the route running, but I don't know if it's the situation he's been in, the quarterback play he's had out in Denver. Now, he's in Cleveland. So we'll see if that picks up anything better. But then we had Justin Jefferson, I can tell you, up in those tiers and ahead of a couple of those guys.
You mentioned Justin Jefferson wanting that gold jacket and wanting to be the best. Who's in that Jerry Rice type of tier right now, currently in the NFL? Not maybe GOAT level, but best in the NFL kind of receivers. Justin Jefferson, and who else would you put up in that mix?
Sam, you want to take a swing at her?
Look, I just wrote a PFF's wide receiver rankings a couple of weeks ago. To me, Jefferson is right up there as obviously the best receiver in the game. The only other guy I think is in the same category is Tyreek Hill, who's obviously a lot older than he is. But Tyreek Hill has that similar ability to win anywhere, from any alignment, at any depth of the field, and in all ways. He's not just that one-dimensional speed demon deep down the field, but that quickness plays on the underneath stuff. It plays on, gimmick plays, whether it's jet motion, whether it's backfield carries. However you want to get the ball in Tyreek Hill's hands, he's able to turn it into a big play. To me, it's him and Jefferson are the two best wide receivers in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I would agree with Ty, and I wonder what his situation is going to be now that these contracts are coming in, and we know Waddle just got done. But I don't know if A.J. Brown, who I think is a phenomenal receiver, but I think is a little bit, I don't want to say stiffer, because that's what his strength of his game is, his power and his ability to go up and get the 50-50 balls and the jump balls. But I don't know if he is as smooth of an athlete as Justin Jefferson is, but he got paid very well. But I would agree with you, Sam. Those two right now are probably at the tops of the NFL as far as receivers.
Two receivers in the Jerry Rice tier. Well, let's talk about A.J. Brown. Is there a Randy Moss tier, a guy that is going to make a massive impact on the offense? Defenses don't want to see this guy. A.J. Brown certainly seems to qualify, but is that where a Jamar Chase is? Maybe a tick below those top two guys?
Sam, expert receiver guy that just wrote an article on self-promoting himself on my PFF receiver rankings.
not just wrote the article, Rick, but don't forget a long and storied playing career at the Irish level as well. Let's not gloss over that. We've got some serious resume work being done here.
Second team All Irish League. Thank you.
That was a defensive back. The wide receiver career wasn't quite as good. That's why we played defensive back.
Of course.
Look, AJ Brown, I think, is absolutely in the next tier. CeeDee Lamb in that next tier as well. And I think, Brandon Ayuk, the name that Rick mentioned that was sort of overlooked almost in that draft class, I think is still kind of overlooked as well when we're talking about the best receivers in the NFL. He might not get the volume that some of those other guys do because of the offense, because of how many mouths there are to feed in San Francisco, but he's so good across the board and is incredibly efficient with the plays that they do give him. And, by the way, might be the best blocker of this entire group. Like, that guy goes out there and blocks hard in the run game as well.
Well, as they say in one of coaches that I've came across is that they say out in San Francisco, potentially this is no block, no rock. That was the number one rule in the receiver room.
Is there anyone in that next tier of receiver, like a Terrell Owens? Who's the next group of receivers? Guys that are maybe close to the top, but potential speed bumps along the way. Sam.
I guess it depends where you start ranking the sort of number two guys almost, right? Like Jalen Waddle is a number two to Tyreek Hill within his own offense. Devontae Smith, a number two to A.J. Brown in his own offense. What you do with those Rams receivers, Cooper Kupp obviously getting on there and also coming off injuries, and then Puka Nacua, who was incredible year one, but we're dealing with just a 1 year sample size. To me, that's sort of where the next tier down would start. You got a couple more names you could probably fold into the last tier, but then you have these sort of second wave of receivers to talk through.
Let me ask you this, Sam. The one name that you haven't mentioned that just got a big contract, Amon-Ra St. Brown. What tier are you putting him in? Because to me, he's what makes I know the Detroit Lions with Laporta, with Gibbs, with the way golf's played, but at the receiver position, I don't know if anyone does more for his team than St. Brown does for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I think you could easily put him in that tier with A.J. Brown, with CeeDee Lamb, a sort of different type of receiver. And this is where, it gets interesting, right? Because we just call them all wide receivers, but they're kind of radically different types of players. Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown is not playing the same position that A.J. Brown is, and yet maybe equally as devastating within his specific role and what he's being asked to do relative to what A.J. Brown is. So I think they're in the same kind of tier. They just sort of play different positions within different offenses.
Rick, have you seen the slot receivers increase in value over the years so that a guy like St. Brown can be making that kind of big money? Because as Sam's saying, some of these guys are take the top off the defense type of guys. We're talking St. Brown. He's going to average 11, 12 yards per catch, but move the chains as well as any receiver in the league.
I think it's because we're seeing a lot of more 11 personnel than we've ever seen. I remember a lot of it was two tight ends, two receivers, one running back. When we were rolling and we had Adrian Peterson, we were going to go base formation or two tight ends. We only had two receivers out there. But the way the game has evolved, the way the athletes are now coming out of college, I think the way the quarterbacks are, what the quarterbacks are used to doing in college, I think the NFL and the offensive coordinators and the play callers in the NFL are trying to adjust to that. And now it's a space game. And when you get, like the Tank Dells of the world, who was a third-round pick, who was a tiny slot receiver, and all of a sudden he explodes onto the scene before, he had the broken ankle that he had last year. And look at the receivers 2 years ago. All those guys except for Quentin Johnson, I think, were smaller receivers. And the Zay Flowers of the world, who went to Baltimore in the first round, was a slot receiver. You can probably put the Ohio State kid, Jackson Smith and Jigba, in as a slot receiver. So I think they've become a lot more valuable in today's NFL game.